Mariala choga balum tulil munya kaya rani liya chubi ya wi gubungin a lay tawan pelweng ma paramam wega chetan lagumnum yena wen kupam yom biora tut chubi chira piale ke jay jur matyang yantong ta choga nyup tarpiad Marial kadong yetong be alwel an kui kuman madudu kwanya lay kangotwang
So, let's start.
Okay.
My name is NIKOLA KOSTIC. I'm a photographer, and I'm doing introduction of myself for the first time. And this is Trevor Cole, Irishman and geographer, photographer. This is something that I heard, and it really stuck with me. And this is actually one of the most interesting parts for me. It would be super easy to go just photography and all of that, but I would like this conversation to be a little geography lesson for myself, because when you said that you're a geography professor, I was like, okay, that's the land and all these things, and I was like, do I really know what geographer is? And then I Googled it. It turns out I didn't know. So geographer by Google is an expert in study of physical features of the Earth and its atmosphere and of human activity as it affects and is affected by these. Is that a fair assessment?
That is. I mean, I always describe it or define it as the relationship between people and their environment and changes that take place through time.
That is the interesting part because, look, I mean, you as a geography professor, which you were for all of these years, you have decided to leave, Ireland. You stayed away from 24 years outside of Ireland. You lived 13 years in Singapore, then West Africa, then Italy, then Ethiopia, and then Brazil. That's like 3 continents, number one. Now, my professor really sucked. There's nothing memorable about this guy. It's just, I mean, like, he was not bad, he was not good, he was just not memorable. But I want to start this conversation by honoring the guy who is, among other things, like, very influential in your life, and that is your geography professor. Do you remember his name? And can you tell me a little bit about this guy? Because, I mean, you have followed in his footsteps.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the guy that taught me at school, Stan Huey, I still know him. He's still a friend of mine. He's 15 years older than me, and he's alive and kicking, as they would say in Ireland. And at school, I didn't really enjoy school that much because the way I was taught was not the way I wanted to learn. I'm a sort of kinesthetic, auditory, visual learner, not someone who loves to listen to someone dictate or teach me by rote learning. This guy took us out into the field. He made the subject come alive. And that's what set me on my path to being a geographer. So I studied geography and environmental science at university, and then took a teaching qualification. I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. And lo and behold, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being out in front of a group of kids and making the difficult simple.
That is why I wanted to kind of like mention this particular person, because I mean, it seems that, and obviously he is still, like in your life, and that is something that is just absolutely beautiful. So I would like to jump to a present tense, because I mentioned, like 3 continents you lived on, and there are various countries that you visited, obviously, like, during your journey, really. The thing that I heard somewhere is that going through all of these countries actually made you discover your homeland, Ireland. I mean, like, it's just a kind of like a weird thing. When we leave, we kind of like realize what was there. So the first thing is geography lesson number 1, Ireland and its people. Can you tell me a little bit about it? Maybe something that is not well known. I mean, like, it just, Can you tell me a little bit about Ireland?
I think it's true to say that whenever I left Ireland is when I truly grew to love Ireland, because looking at other places around the world, I realized a few things about Ireland which are fairly unique. It's scenically stunning. It's got a fairly sparse population, and probably because it has a sparse population, people are incredibly interactive and friendly. It's geographically, it's very similar to Scotland in that it has similar mountains, actually the same mountains, stunning coastlines, and the people are renowned for their friendliness, and their welcoming spirit. And I just think the Irish love to be out there promoting their own country. It's never really been a country which has found itself in a great deal of conflict. And yet it has this wonderful cultural history that takes us back to Paleolithic times. You know, there are ancient ruins dotted around the Irish coastline. And I love taking photographers there to see these ancient 3,000, 4,000-year-old stone circles.
What would be your favorite thing to photograph there, actually? I mean, like, you're obviously taking people, and we will actually, my last question will be about these photo tours that you're doing. But what is your personal favorite thing to photograph in Ireland?
I think I can answer that quite easily. The coastline. It's just so diverse, and it's highly indented. So you have these mountains fringing the coast. So as a geographer, I always describe it as the boundary between the marine and the terrestrial, and it's that very place where you see these swell waves coming in off the Atlantic with all their power and might. Creating just the most beautiful beaches and resilient headlands. It's incredible scenically.
Yeah, I personally gravitate towards like bad weather, you know, like as a scenic, you know, like as a landscape stuff, you know, which I do rarely, really. But I mean, I really gravitate towards this drama, really, you know, like in the. I mean, it's really easy, like it's blue skies and all that, and you just take the photos all day. But in Ireland, I mean, that kind of this rush of the sea coming into this, you know, like mountains, and then like a bad weather. I mean, that must be incredible to. And then I'm sure a ray of lights coming in, and that must be incredible to photograph. I mean, kind of difficult, but.
Well, I don't know. I actually prefer clouds. I won't go out and photograph on a blue sky day.
Yeah, there's no point. Like you just.
It's people have to realize, well, why would you come to Ireland on holiday? And in fact, Ireland's scenery is a reflection of not just its geology, it's a reflection of the climate. Because if it wasn't for this very, very unsettled Atlantic climate, then Ireland wouldn't be the green, sort of rugged country that it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's for sure. I mean, that kind of brings me to I mean, not Ireland, but that brings me to another hero the guy that we both love, and that is Sebastião Salgado. I heard this incredible story that you guys share a model. And that blew my mind. So please tell me everything about number. I mean, I saw Salgado's exhibition in St. Petersburg, and literally it blew my mind. I do truly believe that you belong with him and Macari. For me, there is no difference. And I mean, whoever tells me differently, I'll go Conor McGregor on them. Really, I'll just tick. But tell me about this moment and actually where that was, and like I want to know everything.
Well, first of all, that's a really nice thing to say. Thank you. Sebastian Salgado, he's a Brazilian guy who, as you know, I mean, he really is. I mean, his movie, the Salt of the Earth,
Oh
just
God.
epitomizes for me what we should all be doing. He has converted his own land in Brazil back to nature. And his photography focuses on this incredible interaction. In fact, this is my perfect geography between the world's wild places and the world's indigenous people.
100%.
Whether it be in the Amazonian rainforest or the highlands of West Papua or in Ethiopia. And this is where, I discovered I had photographed actually quite a few years ago some people from the Suri tribe, also sometimes known as the Surma tribe. And until recently, this tribe have been, fairly remote. And I was just so surprised when I wandered around his exhibition in London and also in Milan. I went to it twice.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw him speak in London as well at the Salt of the Earth with my daughter. And I saw this photograph of a Suri girl, and I just looked at her and knew I'd photographed her. In fact, this year I was traveling again to the land of the Suri, and I saw her older sister. And I watched. I first met this girl maybe 10 years ago, and then 6 years ago, and then again this year. And I was able to gesture to her to come over, and I showed her the photograph. This is the older sister.
That is incredible.
And it was just such an emotional moment. But it was the same girl that I was looking at, her younger sister. And I photographed her at least a couple of times that he had photographed in Surma.
That is an incredible. I mean, like you're wandering around. Like this is like for me, like a demigod, really. Salgado. I mean, like what happened to me is like I was watching the Salt of the Earth, and then especially this TED talk that he had, and that was a couple of years ago, and I realized, I mean, I kind of like I like what I do. That's all good, but I've been photographing kind of like symbols, really. It's just kind of like a pretty pictures. I mean, like there is a story now, like going back, and that happens to a lot of photographers. They photograph and then they connect the stories. But this guy purposely made it into a story. Spent 10 years photographing one thing, not knowing if this will going to be something or nothing. His whole life is just incredible, and I urge everybody to see, Salgado's work, because it's just it is incredible. Which, he's just, outstanding photographer. Which brings me to my next question, and that is just one word, and that is again geography lesson for me: Ethiopia. Can you tell me a little bit about the people, a little bit about the land first?
Well, I grew to love Ethiopia. I first went there in the year 2000, 20 years ago, just to travel and to visit for the first time the people of the Omo. And then, it just, I don't know, it came together in 2006 when the head of the school contacted me and said, Trevor, are you working at the moment? And I was just between jobs, and said, I've got a job for you here if you want it, as the head of the geography department.
Sure.
And I thought, you know what? Yes. It's an incredible country, and it has a lovely, lovely tourist logo or tourist saying now, the land of origins, because it's the seedbed of humankind, with Australopithecus afarensis, Lucy, And it's ancient history, and the fact that it's never been colonized. It was occupied for a little while by the Italians.
Mm-hmm.
Its geographical and ethnic diversity just draws me in every time. You have these incredible Simien Mountains, which extend up to an altitude of 4,600 meters, all the way down to the hottest place on Earth, which is 120 meters below sea level.
Wow.
The second lowest place on Earth after the Dead Sea. And it's part of the same bit of geography as the Dead Sea, the Great East African Rift Valley. The west of Ethiopia has rainforest. The northeast of Ethiopia has this incredible desert. And then there are wonderful savanna lands, mountains, lush farmlands or lush agricultural lands, huge population of 100 million, where the women are still on average having 5 to 6 children.
Mm-hmm.
And the population is actually at risk of exploding to such an extent that the country won't be able to support them.
Yeah. The Omo Valley is on my mind definitely for years now, and I kind of like took this crazy trip that you know, I was on the road probably for 3-4 years, you know, like constantly, and it just took me to cities really, and almost kind of like. Yeah, I mean, I that place is in my mind for like 10 years now, and definitely there's no doubt that I'm going. But what I wanted to ask you is, what is it like? I mean, obviously the diversity, as you explained, is incredible. What is it like, you know, in Omo Valley? What is it like to photograph there? What is how the travel there? It seems to be super nice and super safe, and like, you know, yeah, it's hot, but you know, like it's Africa, so.
Yeah, it has changed a lot in the 20 years since I've been there. There are a lot of outside influences now, like new roadworks, better roads, more telecommunications, the government influence, the fact that they've given away a lot of the tribal lands to big agribusiness, you know, Chinese agribusiness or Indian agribusiness, which I actually hate. On top of that, you know, a lot of these people are animists, but many of them are now being converted to Christianity, and you know, I don't like any of that. I'll be ruthlessly honest, but nonetheless, it is still an amazing place to go because of this ethnic diversity, and the very fact that the tribes themselves are quite resilient. They must be empowered to make their own choices. Of course, they can change, but it should come from them, not from outside influence.
Yeah, we all wish that, you know, like that influence of the, let's say, Western living, you know, would come kind of like more gradually, really, because I mean, like when you shock the system with you know, money and you know, power, let's say, just, you know, it's very easy to kind of like just go for easy life, and everything changes. I mean, I've seen it happening in Indonesia where I live, but I mean, there is really not a lot that can be done to stop it, it seems, you know, and it's just a kind of like transitional thing. And this dam that is that dam is built, and I heard about this 10 years ago, actually, and I was like, okay, so they're building this monstrosity, and they're just going to shut down the water. Like, well, is that true, or like, what is happening there?
You know, the environmentalist in me will say, I hate big dams. I cannot see any advantage in investing billions of Ethiopian birr in these huge projects. There are 2 dam systems that have been recently built. One is the Gibi 3 dam, which is affecting the tribes of the Omo Valley, and that one's complete. And there's another one, but there's another one called the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which is causing international discord between Sudan, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Ethiopia, because Ethiopia is damming a river, which in fact flows through all of Sudan and flows right to the Mediterranean Sea through Egypt. And my argument will always be, why not, in a country that's blessed with so much sunshine, invest in solar panels, alternative sources of energy?
Yeah.
Put the money into that, because my feeling is that, yes, this will generate electricity for Ethiopia, but who will benefit? Not the vast majority
of people. Yeah, sure.
Of poorer people, the people who live in the rural villages who have no electricity and probably will continue to have no electricity. So it upsets me.
Yeah. Let's talk about one particular tribe there and what is it like to be with them, photograph them, because I mean, like, basically I was looking, I know that I have a feeling that Ethiopia is really kind of the country for you. And I kind of like, I found out about you on Instagram and then scrolled all the way down and then kind of like, let's see how he started. It's like a little bit of landscapes and then a little bit people and blah, blah, blah. And as you're going up and up and up, it's just people, it's just Africa. And I mean, like, I was like, okay, I mean, this is interesting. And essentially, this is kind of like, hey, National Geographic, you have, covers for next 10 years here if you're doing tribes. It's just a matter of, do you want vertical or horizontal? I mean, that is it. It's just kind of like, it's great. There's nothing is like, I don't know. Absolutely none of the photographs are kind of like, yeah, okay. Everything is great for me. Our Bori tribe, the most beautiful, am I saying it correctly, actually? Our Bori, yes.
They're known as Arbori or Erbori.
Mm-hmm.
I think whenever they translated the original tribal names, they ended up with several spellings. But the Arbori are one of my favorite tribes. Yeah. And they're just different. They live at a place which is known as Lake Stephanie, which is a dried out lake, or Chu Bahir in the local language. Mm-hmm. And there are 3 villages, one of which I haven't seen and which I want to go and see because it's quite difficult to get to.
Uh-huh.
But
define difficult. What would be difficult? What is the difficulty to get there?
The roads.
The roads. Okay.
Roads get washed away frequently, and you need, and I always have, 2 or 3 4-wheel drives with very small groups of photographers. Mm-hmm. I don't like big groups. I like it to be sensitive. I like it to be sustainable. I like it to be interactive. But the Arbori tribe live in this area, which is actually also a nature reserve. And I don't know why, but they have paler eyes, brown eyes, but paler shades of brown. And I'm really drawn into people's eyes. And that's one good reason for going to somewhere like India, because I love those green eyes. But the Arbori have paler brown eyes. The girls wear these veils or scarves over their head. They have beautiful beads and these black sort of cloth dresses. Sometimes leather. And they're still quite traditional, despite the fact that many are going to school. But there's some of the girls in particular are just, whoa, just think, wow. And I think as a photographer, over time, you look at someone and within your head you say, photogenic, not photogenic. It's a shocking, discriminatory thing, but at the end of the day, it is that photograph that catches the eye. So I tend to gravitate towards beauty, eyes, or real character. The old faces, the wrinkles. the lives lived, and it's just a wonderful tribe. And
what is the atmosphere like in the village? How receptive are they to be photographed? Because I mean, saying that, I mean, my next question, like when you answer this, is your guides, because I mean, like, you are going with the guides who are, you know, basically you're into these tribes where you're going, and I think that these guys really deserve to be mentioned, because I mean they really make things happen for I mean all of us really. Well, so what is the tribe like? How receptive are they? And you know, without the guide, you would be not really in, right?
Not possible. Absolutely not possible. You could not turn up there on your own. It would be a disaster, and actually finding it would also be incredibly difficult. But my guide, you know, who I've been using now for several years, Hodi, she's half of the Bana tribe and half of one of the central Ethiopian ethnic groups, Amhara. And she's amazing, basically. She's the only female guide in the Omo Valley. She can stand up for herself. But also she knows how to go in before us and chat to the tribe and deal with the tribe and make it just so much easier. Quite often you'll see her taking selfies with them, having a laugh with the kids, and just relaxing them in a way which enables everyone to go in, photograph, spend time with the tribe, and socialize. And
which is the key, really. I mean, that connection that you make with the people is really like it goes from, yeah, you can photograph really, you know, like boom, boom, boom. It's not a problem. I mean, like, you know, we all know technique and all that. It's just it like you stop a person on the street. There's this. You see everything is calculated. That's doable. But actually spending time with people, that is the best part of this trip.
Yeah, and I will, if I see someone I really want to photograph, I will spend time with them to get that connection. And if the others in the group want to take advantage of that, absolutely great. But I encourage everyone to go and focus on the person or persons that they want to take their shots, because it has to come from their heart. I don't want it to be a copycat image of mine, you know. So I'll tell them exactly how to shoot it if they want to, my way, but they have their way. Yeah.
The funny thing is, it cannot be replicated. That is like that is one thing, you know, like you have 10 people taking the photo of the same thing. You look at it that night, and it's like, what the hell? I mean, like, how did I miss this? Or like, this is just, I mean, this is incredible. I mean, like, were we photographing the same thing? It is incredible how different things are.
Yeah, and this is there's an argument that was presented to me on the last photo tour by a lady. She said, I don't want anybody else to take the same photographs as me. And I said, well, actually, to me, if I spot someone really, really amazing to look at, I will say, come on, come photograph them. Because every single person, just as you've said, is going to photograph them in a different way. And it really doesn't matter. What matters is the shot that comes from your heart and your eyes and your connection.
I could not agree more. I think that hiding is such a rookie move. You know, like, I mean, that was maybe 20 years ago in my career. Like, oh my God, I mean, like, now when you're just kind of like, you have this career and you're blessed with this life, it's like, I know nobody can do stuff that I do, and I cannot do stuff that anybody else does. I mean, it's just impossible. It's just me, or you, or it is that simple for me. So another tribe, and I have these things where you kind of like go, okay, man, I mean, this is just easy. Dinka tribe. in Sudan. Essentially, you have black skin on the predominantly the cattle is white. You have a lot of dust going on. And I'm kind of like, okay, give a blind man a camera, you'll come up with 3 shots that are incredible. It's just, how do you miss? Give you a camera and you get what you get. I mean, this is incredible. I mean, this is just, please tell me about them. How easily accessible are they? I mean, Sudan being a place where, it's not that kind of la land as Ethiopia. At times can be very, very tricky to get into certain places, I assume. So tell me a little bit about Dinka and Sudan.
Well, South Sudan is somewhere I went to for the first time in January 2019. I've wanted to go for years because I'd seen again Sebastian Salgado's image there years and years ago, and just blew my mind, and I've always wanted to go. And so I found this guy in Sudan that facilitates such trips, and really, I stayed at the Mundari and Dinka tribes are very similar. They both have cattle camps. The Mundari are perhaps even less westernized than the Dinka, but I'll never forget, after 4 or 5 hours driving, we had to camp, obviously, because there's no accommodation apart from camping. And that was all organized internally in South Sudan, a country that's been at war for years, but it's now been at peace for a few years, or 2 or 3 years. So I trusted them, and the trust was well placed. It was very peaceful. But I'll never forget getting out of the vehicle and going to this cattle camp in South Sudan called Khartoum Camp, and the dust and the smoke and the light, and just maybe 500, 1,000 of these Ankoli Watusi cattle with the longest horns on earth. And the tribe, all the men all covered in ash, wandering like ghosts through this ethereal, biblical, I don't know, just incredible atmosphere. The camera was just almost taking, I didn't know where to turn. We got there when the light was just going down, and all the cattle go out to the floodplains of the Nile during the day, and they come back on their own, and they tether them to a post. And we watched all of this, and it was just quite simply incredible. And the tribe themselves, so friendly. They had no issues at all, despite the fact that there are a few Kalashnikovs around to defend against cattle rustling. But it was a photographer's dream. And as you say, you actually couldn't go wrong. Although you can go wrong quite badly when you look at your photographs afterwards, and you find that you've
just off the frame. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so excited at what is in front of you that you forget the edges, and you've cut off the cattle's feet, or so you have to look at the frame to get the shot.
Yeah, that is where the frame is the king, and not what is actually obvious. Like that's what I'm telling a lot of people. Like when they're, especially portraits and stuff like that. Man, I mean, your subject is subject, but look at the background, dude. Yeah, you can Photoshop, but your background is as important as your subject. It brings something to the photo. It elevates it. It does stuff that is just incredible. And when it's bad, it's just bad. It can be the best subject in the world. The photo goes to the trash bin, never to be shown again. It just that's the reality. And I can imagine that being a case there, because I mean, there's so much going on.
Well, it's unbelievable, and you can watch you get up at dawn and you watch the kids gathering the dung from the night before, spreading it out to dry it, and then when it dries, they create their fires, they use the ash, they massage the cattle, they massage themselves, they bathe in the morning under the stream of fresh urine from the cattle. So their hair, the men's hair turns red or orange. And, you know, it's an antiseptic. It's just so sustainable, so incredible that, you know, that someone just paid a deposit yesterday to go on the next trip next February, you know, and I'm just excited that if I can get four people to go, you know,
I really, like, you know, I'll do my best. I mean, this is just, oh my God. I mean, this is absolute. I mean, this sounds like, yeah, that is one of the dreams, really. Omo Valley, and especially Dinka tribe. I mean, obviously, I'm also drawn to it by seeing Salgado's photographs. That is my kind of first into this place, and it just sounds like something that. How much time do you spend there, actually?
Well, just a week. So
where do you sleep? I mean,
we start off in Juba, the capital. It's the 54th country of Africa, the newest country in Africa. And, you know, Juba is arguably, wow, it's just a mess, you know, as a capital city.
Yeah.
It has streets, none of the roads are surfaced. Only a few in the capital have asphalt.
Sounds like a dream capital for me.
Yeah, well, cool. So the hotels, though, are okay because obviously they've got business in the capital. Mm-hmm. But when we go to the camps, we'll spend 2 or 3 nights in 2 cattle camps, the Dinka and the Mondari. And we just camp. The guy provides us with tents and a cook and a couple of 4x4 good vehicles. And then also the first time we went to Eastern Equatoria, to the Toposa tribe, the Boya tribe, Latuko tribe. Also interesting, bit more like the Omo Valley tribes. But for me, it was the cattle camps that epitomized South Sudan along the banks of the Nile. And camping there and getting up in the morning and just watching how they live. The last time we saw a group of young people being initiated into the tribe, which only happens once a year, and that was so lucky.
Oh,
and
yeah, I mean, that's
naked into the bush for 3 weeks, the boys, and with their bows and arrows, and they have to survive. And incredible, really. And then we watched a group of old women covered in red ochre and butter at a baby naming ceremony. And I just thought, this is special. And not another, if you like, tourist in sight. And that's happened both times I've been there. Now, other people are going, and people are truly starting to take an interest as they've seen photographs from Travel Photographer of the Year, from just Instagram. So, you know, it will open up, but now is a good time to go.
Okay, good. I mean, good to know. I mean, that's in plans. That's happening. So yeah, you said somewhere that you are, especially in portraits, because I do see you. Like, you are an incredible landscape photographer, also. But I mean, I do see this kind of thing with people and portraits, and you were saying that you were seeking the light, especially when it comes to portraits. Describe me. I mean, what does that mean for you? Seeking the light.
Seeking the light. Well, I mean, for me, you know, in the right moment, at the right time, you know, the ordinary becomes extraordinary in the right light. You know, it's the end of the day, the beginning of the day, when you get that soft glow and when you get nice contrasts in someone's face, not the shadows of midday. If I have to shoot at midday, I'll try and find a tree or a doorway. But even with landscapes, light is everything. And on these warm African faces, I'm just editing photographs at the moment from my trip to Namibia in 2019 because I'm way behind with editing. And like all the tribes I've been to, all these peoples of Africa, the light just brings out the textures, the tones, the lines, and I'll play with light. It can be side light, it can be behind me, it can be behind them, but there's no reason not to experiment and use light to your advantage and
100%.
create just that image, because it's your chance, it's your moment, it's your my little quote is capturing inimitable moments today to reflect upon tomorrow. And if I get the light right, then there's a chance I've got a shot that counts.
Yeah, I mean that's a good explanation. How often do you go to the shots that you made years ago, and how often do you go, Trevor? What the how did I miss this?
It's quite funny you should say that, actually, because my girlfriend, she said, you've got to promise me to do a book. B, she said, you're always saying that some of your older photos, let's say I'd say if I go back to 2015 and look at Namibia,
Mm-hmm.
When I went on a photo tour there that I just went with one other person, and I look at my editing and think, no.
Oh yeah. That moment of in a couple of years had passed, you go through the shots and oh my God, I suck.
Yeah.
I gotta re-edit this. Yeah.
The framing was fine. It's just it was oversaturated. It was, I turned everything, the sliders to the right instead of to the left. Now I do the opposite. I tone things down. I try and make, subtlety in my image, which is far more powerful, I think. But it's taken me a long time to learn.
Oh, it takes forever to look. The more mature we are, and I think the better we are, the less buttons we press. It just seems that way to me. It's I look at my photographs, editing of my photographs 15 years ago, and oh my God, I mean that will never see the light of the day ever. I mean, this is just the cruelty against everything. But I mean that does happen, and that is the learning curve of everybody, I guess. Now I have
absolutely.
I have one off photography a question. You lived in 3 continents, and you were literally choosing very hot-blooded places. Brazil, where emotions were invented. Africa, very emotional. I think place overall. Singapore, you lived there for 13 years, and you're Irishman, hot-blooded, welcoming. And I know Singapore really well. I mean, I live in Bali, so I went there 40 times. It is, to this day, the biggest cultural shock that I will ever experience. I mean, Dinka will be, high up, but landing from Serbia to Singapore airport, and before that, I went to Romania, and I visited Greece. And I went on a plane twice. I was 24, landed in Singapore, and I saw miles of carpet. It is what is it like for Irishmen to live in Singapore? You were teaching there, right?
Yeah, I taught there for 13 years, but I had backpacked through Asia in the 80s. I went from Burma to Bali overland in 86, and then 87 I went from Bali to West Timor.
Yeah.
Along Nusa Tenggara. Which in 87 was quite sort of adventurous.
Yeah.
And then the next year, 88, this job came up, the head of geography at an amazing school in Singapore. And I loved Asia so much, I jumped at the chance, but I hadn't actually been to Singapore in my Asian travels. So it was a shock to the system because it was such a clean, almost sterile at first glance, urban complex. But I grew to love it because there's an edge to Singapore, like any of these places that exists.
Oh, I met a couple of people who are actually from there and telling me the stories of the, dark side of Singapore. Oh. Jesus. I cannot tell those stories, publicly, but Jesus.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a pub and club and scene there, and it was an amazing place to live, and it was an amazing school I taught in. It was the school that taught me how to teach, really. Mm-hmm. And it was also because I had 3 months holiday a year. Yeah. Fantastic jumping off place to go to India, Nepal.
It is the best hub in the world.
Through Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand, East Asia,
absolutely.
Indochina, wherever.
If you're jumping in Asia, Singapore is probably number one place to kind of like jump off anywhere in here. I mean, the because of the connections there, just it is, the one of the biggest airports, and it's just connections are just all of it is there.
It's incredible. It was a great place to work. Took me a while to adjust to the climate because it is so.
Oh Jesus.
100% humidity on a lot of days and 26 to 32 degrees.
Yeah. I would call humidity like 113%. I mean, oh my God. I remember coming off, the first time I inhaled Asia was in Singapore on one of those afternoons. And you know what I'm talking about. When you just melt, the door opened to the thing and it was like... Well, I mean, this is not going to work for me. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
Blanket. But after a year, I was able to adjust quite well, and we were quite well looked after. So you lived in a condominium with a swimming pool. I started playing squash again and running, and you
get into the groove, yeah.
You do adjust.
Next. Two places are, my playground, Indonesia, and Papua New Guinea. To Papua, you traveled once, right? Papua New Guinea.
Yes, and I think I mentioned to you before, I'm really keen to go to West Papua, but Papua New Guinea, I went to 2017, and incredible country. A dangerous country in many ways if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. But the people fascinate me because they've been there in situ as ethnic minorities for 60,000 years or so, they say, or close to it. And they have this very distinctive look, which is contiguous with the Aboriginal peoples. And, they were one of the first peoples to migrate and stay in one place. And the diversity of language there, I think there are 840 different languages in
it is incredible.
And each one of those ethnic groups has its own distinctive cultural traits and traditions. And each year they celebrate those in festivals called Sing Sings, where they sing and dance and make music, and they take real pride in their cultural heritage. And the chance to photograph that was just too much to resist. An expensive place to get to, an expensive place to stay. But
yeah, especially during that festival season, it gets a little bit crowded, and there's not that many places that you can stay in, really. But it gets kind of a little bit, you got to book in advance. I think for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was amazing, and maybe the most amazing thing we did was to go up the Sepik River in northern New Guinea and see these amazing spirit houses, which are ancient and where only men are allowed, and just the carvings and the culture and their connection with nature.
Yes.
And these guys with scarification on their backs to because they're imbued with the spirit of the crocodile, and their back is just like the skin of a crocodile. The way they've
the carved, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, quite incredible. I mean, the Suri tribe and the tribes of Africa also do this. They decorate themselves, and it fascinates me. It really does.
It is an incredibly picturesque place. I mean, and then the colors there are just the most incredible things. Again, one of those places, it's really, really hard to miss, like, I mean, especially like with the portraits, I feel it's just really, really difficult not to get, bunch of incredible photographs, and the people seem to be, I mean, I know Indonesians are super friendly, very receptive to interactions, and I mean, I speak the language a little bit, so that is a massive help, as you know. I mean, imagine speaking, Dinka language. I mean, that would be incredible. I mean, like to connect directly to the people, but it takes a while to learn language, and you would not be able to use it much. So it is an incredible experience. In Indonesia, I mean, you travel obviously Bali and all these things. Where did you go? What was your favorite place? And you told me that you're planning to come, actually.
One of my ex-students, who I'm very close to, she's a wildlife conservationist in Africa, but she lives in London, and she's getting married in Bali next July. So there were a few places I wanted to go back to, apart from Bali. I think I mentioned I wanted to go to Sumba, and you gave me the idea of going to
Lord.
But when I first traveled in 86 and 87 through Indonesia, I fell in love with Indonesia then. It's maybe it was just, again, one of these places with great ethnic diversity, and I loved going to you've got a chicken in the background.
Oh yeah, no, that's a gecko.
Yeah, all right, yeah, of course.
There it is.
Yeah. I should have recognized.
Bali, gecko. Yeah,
absolutely. I went to Torajaland in Sulawesi.
Oh yeah.
And went to one of these ceremonies, where they slaughter the buffaloes.
Absolutely.
I loved climbing Kelimutu in Flores, and going to see because the geographer in me, those lakes were impressive. I loved going to the island of Sumba, and I just thought, wow, there wasn't a tourist in sight, and the beaches were beautiful, and stayed in these simple Losman and the Gili Islands off Lombok.
Oh my God! I mean, Gillies, you should see it now. Gillies is packed. I mean, I'm also like diving, and I'm very, very passionate about this thing, and I've been fortunate that Indonesia is one of those places where it's one of the best diving in the world, and Gillies is just completely decimated with like this fishing with dynamite. And then I met this guy who was in his, I think, 40s, and he was telling me when he was growing up how that coral reef looked like. And like literally, he was telling me the story, and we're going down, and there's just a fish. There's a fish and a little bit of coral. And he was telling me about this lush coral stuff happening, and it's just mind blowing that this is happening. But I mean, like, I also understand that like it's just education and the need and all these things. People are not thinking ahead, really. So unfortunately, that is happening. So
it upsets me because I went there in '86 and '87, and there was one place to stay, a tin shack. I remember it was $3 for dinner, bed, breakfast, and white, pristine beaches with giant clam shells just lying on the beach, that were just, it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I could go back.
No, don't go back, because I mean, look, I'm part of the problem, but I mean, I need to eat, so I was paid a couple of times to go to Gillies and photograph hotels with swimming pools and this and that, and just kind of like that is there now. It's absolutely there now. Gillies are like almost a party place, and I mean, there was this massive earthquake, obviously, a couple of years ago that really decimated this place, and like it's coming back. But what they did with the coral was really kind of, I wish we could go back. I just wish we couldn't go back. Like, I have another question. Winning awards, what is that like? I mean, winning award for art is just kind of like, but there's that part of you that must be going like, honey, I think that I'm in the finals. Honey, I won. I mean, there is a part of it that's going like, yes. I mean, like that bullshit of Hollywood. It's not really nice that I'm nominated and all that. That's just bullshit. So it is nice to win stuff, even though like I said, awards for arts. I mean, it's just kind of like, what is the point of this? But it is nice to win. So tell me about not the awards really, but that kind of like excitement of like, oh my God. I mean, like, this is kind of like going really well.
Well, I mean, I think in photography, when you enter, I enter a few competitions each year, not very many. I try and pick good competitions, if you like. And this year I had I got travel Travel Photographer of the Year, People and Cultural Award. I won that, and I was excited by that.
Of course.
It's a prestigious award, but to be ruthlessly honest, I could put the same set of images into another very well-known competition, and it gets nowhere.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like all art forms, it's highly subjective.
100%.
So it's like a lottery in a way. Your photographs are okay, but it just depends on the criteria or the judging.
Look, the judge comes in and it's Tuesday and he's like, this is the best work I've seen. On Wednesday, he goes like this, I don't know.
It is very subjective. There's a website called oneexposure1x.com, and it's the only curated site I know, and you put in 10 images, and they will assess whether that photograph should be published or not. And I honestly never know. And they say 1% of their photographs, the photographs submitted, are published. Now, I've got a slightly higher percentage than that. The last time 60% of mine were published.
There you go.
And I've got 100 published now on their site. But, there's the photography on there is superb, really amazing. If you ever want to sort of get a little bit of inspiration, it's a great place to go and browse through
images.
images, all types of genre, from my type of thing, through amazing landscapes to fine art, nude photography, whatever it happens to be. It's fun,
there.
but it's the standard. It's based in Sweden. The standard is superb.
That sounds amazing. I mean, like, I will definitely check that out. We have two more things to discuss, and this is one thing. Your landscapes. I mean, I gotta mention that, and I gotta mention one place, and that's Iceland. Tell me a little bit, again, geography lesson, and we go into a little bit of what is it like to photograph in Iceland, because that seems like, that's a paradise for, again, one of those places. Give a blind man a camera. I mean, it's just how do you miss? But your photography from there is spectacular.
Oh, thank you. But I mean, I first went to Iceland in 1988 on a school trip. I just started teaching, and it was my first school from England. And I took them on a geology slash geography field trip.
Did you have a camera with you?
I did, yeah.
How many students did you lose?
I was taking slides then. Those are the pre-digital days, and went right round round Iceland, and it was a June time, so the kids were playing frisbee at 12 o'clock at night, and I just thought, wow, what a stunning country. So then I went back a few more times, and then we started taking small groups to Iceland for a while. And we got to know the best places to photograph along the south coast and north coast of Iceland. Incredible waterfalls, volcanic craters, ice on the beach, at sunrise, catching that light if you're lucky with the weather. And then at night, the joy of taking a shot of Aurora Borealis if it happens to be around and the skies are clear. And then we stopped going a few years ago just because it had become too popular. So you go to a beach and you could count 100 tripods on the beach, all taking the same thing. And the guy I share my photo tours with, the landscape photo tours, we just decided, let's give this a miss for a while and maybe take a look at the Faroe Islands or somewhere else that appeals.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happens with you're kind of like easy, accessible place, really, which Iceland.
It is, yeah, and Iceland,
and I mean, the beauty, really. Hello?
Say it again, sorry.
That is what happens with the easily accessible places. I mean, Iceland is kind of easily accessible, and it is stunning. So and the world gets around really quickly these days. So hopefully you'll find the new spot.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, last year we did one to the Highlands and Islands of Scotland. And that's still really beautiful. So this year's trip was postponed for obvious reasons. But next year we're hoping to run it again. So
sounds fantastic. And I would like to close the thing with the last question that is your photo tours. I mean, I've seen that you're taking people to Africa, Canada, Iceland, like you're reconsidering Latin America. Romania is a little bit of an interesting, choice. I'm picking on them because they're little, and then Wild Atlantic Way in Yemen. Tell me a little bit. Nothing. I mean, it's kind of like okay, you do that. That's amazing. But I will obviously put all of these links in the below in the comments, and people can go and look at them. But tell me a little bit about what is the the point of that every photographer has, every person who's taking people on these trips has some kind of a thing that they want to achieve with this, like, I mean, in every single person, I'm assuming there is a lot to do with, not a lot to do, but there is some technical parts of it, but then there is a soul of it, which I'm sure that you're like, yeah, you're telling people this is here and there and all that, but I mean, these connections and all that. Tell me a little bit about these tours and what happens to the people that attend them.
Well, some of those you've mentioned are ones that I've been on myself. I'm dying to take a photo tour to the little island of Socotra off Yemen, which I've been to twice. It's one of the most incredible places. Our photo tours, we only really run a few each year, preferring to keep them small, i.e. 4 to 6 people.
Intimate, yeah.
And even along the Wild Atlantic Way or the Highlands of Scotland, the 2 tours we did there last year were a group of 4 and a group of 3, 2 vehicles. And, we paced the tour at a speed which enables people to really have time at each location to see things for themselves in the same way as we do in Africa. Let's go in, let's spend time at the village, get the shots for as long as the light serves us well. If someone wants help, then we teach. There are people who come with a new camera, they haven't really photographed much before, and a photo tour can truly enable someone to go anywhere on this earth and have a little bit more confidence that they're not putting it on program mode, and they're instead shooting and thinking about aperture or ISO or the type of metering they're using. And we also have those, who come along just because they don't have time to organize it themselves. They're in very stressful jobs, and they want to be taken to the best locations with the chance of getting the best shot to take home. And a lot of the people are over 60 years old, and they're retired, semi-retired, and they found a passion later in life. And
it's beautiful, yeah.
They don't want to sort of organize it all night by night themselves. So they go to someone like us, and there are lots of photo tour leaders out there, and we take them to places we know. I would never take a group without having really looked at it carefully myself. Ireland is easy. Scotland is easy. Africa now, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Angola, Chad, I've got good organizations that help. So the tours are important, but, they're small. And sometimes other people employ me, like tribal tourists in South Africa, for example, to take their groups and teach, guide as necessary.
That sounds like a tour that is worth like going on. And by saying this, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. And one more time, I mean, you were that for me. I go to this Instagram thing, which I'm kind of like, I came really late to a party, really late. I mean, like maybe 2 months ago, I started really doing it. And every morning, like I go to Instagram and just try to find, like somebody. And when I saw your photographs, it is just one of those, what the and then you just, oh my God, this is just, let's look for this guy's bad shot. No, it was incredible to be able to speak to you, and really, I really hope that I will meet you in person in Bali in like next July, right?
We will.
And
And if you ever want to come on any of these trips in Africa, especially, it would be my pleasure.
Thank you so much for doing this.